So we have Dorothy sharing her faith story today, and Dorothy is a founding member of this congregation. And so let's pray her in. Loving God, we give thanks for Dorothy, for her perseverance, her dedication, for her faith and her love. We give thanks for this church that she has helped to build. Lord, we pray that you will take away any nerves and that she will feel inspired and inspire us this morning with your word. Amen.
Thank you, Brenda.
You're welcome.
Well, I said I'm the last one, and so if you think you came to hear the best, they save the best for last, you may be disappointed. First, I'm going to show you this. This is the first hymnal we had. And then Paul Owens, one of our charter members, he had the main auction, and he got us a bunch of these. And this is written in the front. It says, Hillview's first hymnal, 1962. And then in your pews, you'll find other hymnals, and we finally got some given to us from Glenn's Ferry. They got new ones, a new revised version, so they sent us some of their old ones. And then later, when we were going to build on some more, we had a drive to get some. So in the front of those hymnals in there, there's a sticker that says given by the such and such family, because we all did. We're always passing the plate, and I don't think that's changed too much. So hopefully I'll tell you a little bit about some of the things. You won't hear all the stories, because there was lots of stories, believe you me, and especially at the mausoleum. A lot of people think that the mausoleum was where we started. You'll find that on some things. But we actually started first Sunday with Sunday school, and we had it in the Ada County Extension Building, which was on the corner then of Orchard and Fairview. I think it's been a massage parlor, and I don't know what all now. But we finally outgrew that, and we did get to go to the mausoleum, and we were there for quite a number of years. And we were thrilled with the mausoleum. Some people had an aversion to that. They just, But it had a little chapel. We had some pews. And then we had Sunday school in the hallway. I taught Sunday school in the furnace room. And we did that until then they wanted to make it into a full-fledged mortuary in a number of years. And so they were going to remodel it to a full-fledged mortuary because it just was a crematory kind of thing. And so they would be using all the spaces that we used. Like the furnace room was going to be a prep room, and the hallway and something else that they used was going to be turned into a slumber room. So we would have to, move again. So, but anyway, and we had to choose a name, of course, for Hillview, and we chose it from the Psalm 121. We all turned in a name. I mean, some people did. There were 3 names. One was something Trinity in the name. I can't remember what. The other one I don't remember at all. And then this one is the one we chose. We voted. And I voted for the one that had Trinity in it. I always had the kind of known for voting for the one that didn't get it. But so I did vote for that one. I remember, but I don't remember the verse. But this verse says, I will lift up my my eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord, which makes heaven and earth. That was how we chose our name. And Hillview's been a good name, and it's served us well, I think. And so, but Ethel Hikus is the one that submitted that name, and so we had to have a name. And before that, we were known as the Outpost Sunday School, because we had to have something down when we ordered Sunday school supplies. And so we were the Outpost Sunday School for a long time. And my parents, I was born in a little town in Missouri, 22 miles from Branson, and I know you know where Branson is. And it was nothing then. We had a post office and a service station, not much else. Now it is a resort area. When I was little, they talked about building this dam, but they never built it until 1957. It was done, and of course we were long gone by then. But it's now the largest lake in Missouri. It's called Table Rock Lake. And these rivers and everything come together. And it's a resort area, and they have summer homes all over. And, of course, it was a very, very poor place, before. So I always wonder what it would have been like if, like, my parents and their parents and everybody that was raised there would have been living in that day. Because now, my grandparents did move back there to retire, and they lived their last few years there when it was a resort area. And all these homes just sprung up everywhere, and it's entirely different. My parents got married on the 26th of September in 1928. My mother had only been 19 for 5 days. My dad wasn't 19 till September, or December, and he used to torment her. He would tell the people that he married an older woman. She didn't see the humor in it. Then I was born 1 year and 2 days after they were married, September 28th, 1929. Well, you know what it was like in those days. No money. And my little brother followed 2.5 years later. And then we didn't have any more in the family till we were 14 and 12, he and I, and we had a little brother in 43. But he lived in a whole completely different era than we did. It was, my mother's grocery list changed a lot, and the menu changed a lot and everything. But I'll truthfully say, I never, ever went to bed hungry. Because we raised everything, grew everything, dried everything. My mother made her own cottage cheese, hominy, tomatoes, sweet potatoes every which way there was. And my grandparents always lived close to us. They always did, even when we came to Idaho. They were already here. And but we were very poor. But my brother and I didn't know that. Nobody had any money. Everyone was in the same boat. And I never got spanked, ever. Probably should have a time or two, but my dad never hit us with a belt or spanked us. He sat us down and he talked to us, or he gave us a talking to, a lecture, in other words. And he said I was easy because all he had to do was just look at me, just give me a look. And he said my brother was a little harder. But we had a radio, and it was our link to the outside world. We didn't have electricity. And the dial had to be set just so, I suppose, for reception. Well, my brother was not too little. I always wanted to give it a real twirl. And my dad, that was a no-no. We were not to touch it. That was not a toy. That was, you don't touch the dial. Well, one day we got our chance, or I got the chance. So we gave it a twirl, or I did. And he came home, and I thought it was just set just right, but it wasn't. So I got the look and a lecture, because he knew it wasn't my brother. And then the one other time that was really bad, we had a black cat, and it had the longest, whitest whiskers you ever saw. And I was fascinated with them. I was fascinated with the whiskers. I always wondered what it would be like to just snip one off. Because I wondered what it would sound like or feel like, because they were kind of stiff, So I mastered the little blunt-ended scissors, and I did it, I know, because my brother was 2.5 years younger. And so I cut off some whiskers. And I still can feel that. Every time I see a cat's whisker, I can just remember that little sound and little snap, And I don't know how many I cut. I don't remember any of that. But anyway, my dad came home, and when the cat obviously was missing some whiskers, he sat us down, and he first off wanted to know who did that, what happened. We didn't know. So that was number one wrong. We didn't know. And so he, wise that he was, he got the blunt scissors out. He gave them to my brother first, along with the comics. We called them the funny papers. And so Bob couldn't even hold them, let alone cut. And I was just, real proud of myself. So I started cutting, and I cut along the lines and did all these right things, and I was busted. But we didn't get spanked, but I sure got a lecture. The poor cat, that was his feelers. He wouldn't be able to feel his way around at night. Anyway, I almost wished I got swatted. And so anyway, that was my bringing up. And then we came to Idaho when I was 7. We came out here, we came to Ustick. My grandparents were already there because my dad there were 6 kids in the family, and there was the oldest one and the baby one were girls, and then 4 boys in between. And 2 of the boys had already come out here because it was more opportunity. They'd take the train and hobo ride. And so we came, and my grandparents were already here. Ustick had orchards, had dairies, lots of dairies, and there were a lot of people that had come there from Denmark, and they either worked in a dairy or owned a dairy. Dairies were big. It had a post office, it had a mercantile, had a little bank, it had a high school, 2-year high school and grade school, all in one building, a big building. And and lots of people lived there. And we lived right in back of the mercantile, I remember. And my grandparents lived in the middle of the apple orchard. And it was quite a little town then. And I went to grade school there. And I never went to high school there because we'd moved on up the road on what is now Fairview, but then it wasn't Fairview, it was just Highway 30. A 2-lane road. Everyone's address was Route 2 Meridian. And we lived there, and high school I went there. But you had 2 years of high school in Ustick if you still lived in Ustick. And what you did is you usually changed either to Meridian, Dad bought you a car and you hauled the other kids and got paid for it, or you went to work with your dad, to work by Idaho Power or something in Boise. You went to Boise High. But I don't remember when it closed. Someone asked me that the other day, and I don't remember. But anyway, school was always fun for me, and I got along good in school. In fact, I feel bad now because I didn't really think about it being hard for anybody. And I should have probably thought a little bit more about that. But it was always easy. My grandmother always had time for us. Why they had time, I don't know, because she had 6 kids. But she taught us games. She taught us to play dominoes, checkers. Then Chinese checkers came to town, and then that was her passion. And then she also taught us a lot about numbers and words, because she loved to spell. And if you lined me and my 2 aunts and my grandmother all up today, we all look alike, same size, same weight, same hair, same everything. That was the gentry women. My grandmother said once that during her fat period, she weighed 119. And my 2 aunts, one aunt I know when she died at 92, she weighed 118 and had for years, and that's about what I weigh now, so. Anyway, it was interesting, but school was easy for me, and I took every bookkeeping, typing, shorthand class I could, because in those days, girls didn't particularly go to college unless they wanted to be a nurse or a teacher, and I didn't want to do either one. I wanted to be a secretary. So I had a job before I really got out of high school. I had taken the test, and I had with the old, it's called Personnel Commission then. And so I worked for the employment office, and I worked for about 12 years. Another girl and I were the only 2 out of our class that weren't married. Everyone got married, but I'm 49. We graduated in 47. 49, they were all married. Some got engaged that night we graduated. They gave up on us. They thought we were really weird, would never get married. And when we did get married, we didn't get married till we were 23, and she'd been working for the bank. I'd been working for the employment office. We'd had nice vacations, dancing our way through life. And we both married someone out of our class, one of our classmates. And we got married 2 weeks apart from each other. And we were 23, and they had given up on us. They thought we would never get married, and they told us so. And We never had a church particularly. We'd go for Christmas. We'd go to the schoolhouse or there and get our stocking. My dad would go out and cut us a Christmas tree, a cedar tree off the hillside. We didn't have much decorations. We didn't have any lights or candles because we used wood heat. We'd put it up Christmas Eve always. And we'd have paper chains and popcorn strung on it. Maybe we might have some cranberries if we had cranberries. But anyway, Lennon he worked for the dam, Anderson Ranch Dam. And of course, he left home as soon as he could because Grandma made them go to church. They had to go to the Nazarene church until they rebelled. Then she wouldn't let him go to the most popular church in Meridian, which was the Methodist. Because I was there for dinner the day that she made this announcement, and she said she had heard from her friends that they danced in the basement of the Methodist church, the youth group, so they couldn't go. Well, they did the Virginia Reel once, is what they did. But she would let them go to the Christian church with their friends because she finally realized they weren't going to go to church. They weren't. They rebelled. Lyndon and his sister, and I ran around with his sister. And we'd been going to the Nazarene church, and she and I went to camp at McCall and stuff like that. But she wouldn't let them go to the Methodist church ever. And until the day she died, she used to tell us that it didn't do you any good to go to the Methodist church. You might as well not go at all. That, and she also preached against revising the Bible. That's when they were trying to get the first revision standard Bible done, and she was against that. But anyway, he didn't have anything to do with church, of course, then, after they got where they didn't go at all. And Kathleen, she never did ever go again until her daughter was going to get married in the Lutheran church, and Brenda says, I'm going to get married in a church before I get married, and I want to join it first. So they all joined the Lutheran, which was a no-no. And so anyway, but Lennon he went to Korea. He got drafted. He went to Japan and Korea. And then he got to come home in July after he had been over there. He got a release from active duty. You didn't actually get out. It was on just a piece of onion skin paper and very official looking at all. And so then we got married November the 2nd in 1952, and we got married in the First Christian Church downtown. That's on 9th and Franklin. That's before they built the new one out at the university, out at BSU. And it's still there, and they call it Capital City now, and it's been various churches, I think. But we got married there in the basements where they had the reception. The ladies did it for $25 or something, and he had punch and coffee. And so then we bought a house in 6 months, which we knew nothing about buying a house, except my dad was a builder. And he came. Is it not working? Anyway, he came and looked up and stairs, downstairs, whatever, and said, Dorothy, that house will never fall down. I still live in it. And so we lived there. And Lennon worked at Lucky Peak. And when we bought the house, and then Mark, we had first babies, a lot of us. Mark was born, and we didn't travel with them. They were going to Pierre, South Dakota, next, the group that had come in to finish the dam. So we didn't go. He got a job with an engineering company. And so we stayed here. Well, I went the first Sunday we had church over at the Extension Building. My friend called and said that they were going to have Sunday school. And so that was in the first Sunday was in February. And I went, and Mark and I walked over, and we went. And Lennon didn't go, and of course he wasn't into church yet. But the next Sunday, I was getting ready to go, and he said something, and I said, well, what are you doing? He was changing clothes. And he said, well, I thought I'd go to church with you and Mark if you'd let me. So he went. And the first Sunday I was there were 45 people. And it was just Sunday school, and I liked them all. I didn't know any of them. They had all got interested because of wanting a church out in this end of town. They were moving out here, and they lived in the North End and wherever. And I liked them all and everything. So then he was hooked. So we went after that. We went all the time. And we were there. We were the Outpost Sunday School. And I know I taught Sunday school in the hallway. It didn't have any windows. It was just that little building. And we didn't have any music. So we decided we needed a portable cord organ. So we passed the plate for that and had some other little funds raising, and we got it. And we had to take everything home with us at night, everything. Take it back and forth, back and forth. And so then Christmas Day in 1960, we had the first service in the mausoleum. We'd been there. And like I say, we were thrilled with it because it was more like church. It had pews and whatever. And so we actually were there from 60 to 66 before we really got over here. And when we did come over here, Bill Ralphs was our first minister. Then we had Dwight Williams, and then we had Don Smith. And we shared with Emmanuel. And we did that until way up when Don Smith was on his last bit of the term. And then he got to do the Hillview alone then. Emmanuel was no longer in existence. He said one time, some churches have a hard time getting born, that was us, and some have a hard time dying. And Emmanuel the people all got too old and too few, and they built the new cathedral, from the old church downtown, and it was the big thing, and and some people came here, a few people that were still alive, but that's how it just ended. But anyway, Dwight, Bill he was single, so he stayed down there. He had an apartment up above. And so we got by pretty easy on that. But when Dwight came, then the next one, and he came in at 62, he had a wife and 4 small children. So we were renting a house for him over in Westgate. And so we built the parsonage first. That's why the parsonage was built first. So we'd, get that out. And then we had a mortgage. And we had a hard time making the mortgage once in a while, too. And Dwight always had this joke. He was kind of a jokester. Hawkins red steer drive-ins were big. The Hawkins family owned a whole bunch of those. And he used to say, well, if we don't make it as a church, I guess we can sell to the Hawkins family and make it a red steer drive-in. So that was always one of the jokes about it. And but we struggled, and so 1961 was Charter Sunday, and that was a red letter day for us. May 28th, 1961. And we had, I think there was like 52 people joined, and there 2 people and 7 babies were baptized, and 2 adults were baptized, and I was one of the 2. I was, my friend Bonnie Taylor was the other one, and so that was the day I was baptized. And but we had purchased on the 8/13/62, we bought this 5 acres here. There was no one here. In fact, everybody said, why are you going so far out? Because Cole Community was in that church, in back of Albertsons on Cole now. That was their church. King of Glory started the same time we did. I had a neighbor on our street, and they met at Kelt School, and we were meeting with the mausoleum. And then they got to build their church first, the Lutherans did, because they had more help than we did. They had some money. They got some money from the council or something, and they built a house. They built one out on Fairview, and which I think it's where Winco is now. And now Cole Community's down the street, and and King of Glory is on down the street. So we weren't so crazy after all. But we had weeds and no people, there was this house next here on this side, and then down here was a house, and that was it. We didn't have any people. And the telephone survey had said that the people were moving out west. But we were waiting for the people. But anyway, we built the parish house first. And Dwight and Barbara were thrilled with it because it had a separate entrance. And in the house, she had to take the 4 little kids in the bedroom if someone came by to be counseled or something, or see him. And so, and then Don Smith came later. And he, while Dwight was here, though, one thing he did do, he went out to the nursing home on Reserve Street. It was brand new, and he went out on Sundays, and he met Grace Valentine. And I had known her in Eustic because they were big in Eustic. And I don't know, most of you probably know her, Sam and her pictures hanging in the hall down here. And if not, go look at it, because it's way back when. And she liked Dwight, and she liked what we were doing. And so when she died in her estate, she left us $50,000. So that's why it's called Valentine Hall. And anyway, she never went here, but, she just knew him and knew of him. And so we had purchased that, we built the parsonage first, and then we later built Valentine Hall. It was a multi-service purpose room, and we built it. And like I say, we had a hard time, and because of making the mortgage once in a while. Georgia Carswell, my friend, was the treasurer, and she said they used to just throw them all, the bills out on the kitchen table, and they'd go through first, and they'd pick out what they absolutely had to pay. And then they'd do the next check, what maybe they could pay, and then the others just... And so we never had much money, but we had a lot of fun, and we had a lot of potlucks. We had a lot of fundraising, And when Don came, he was here a long time, and like I say, first we did share him, and they never minded that, during back and forth and everything. And then finally, he was appointed. But one thing funny about Don, he never liked pews. He always said, you didn't want pews. You didn't want pews. You had pews. He said everyone took up 1.5 seats. And so we just buy some more green chairs. And we didn't have, when we first built this, we didn't have pews at first. And so he had that funny little thing about him. And in 1971, he was appointed just to Hillview. We didn't have to share him anymore. And so then he wanted his own house and place. And so that's when, after that, so we gave him a housing allowance, and he bought some land out on Duane Drive out here by the LDS Church. And he built a place out there. And that's how that came about. And finally, we used it. We were thrilled with it, the Valentine Hall in there. We used it for everything, but the acoustics were terrible and a few other things. But we all taught Sunday school, and Janine Watkins and I later even taught Sunday school in portables, and that's hot in the summer and cold in the winter. And another thing we had to do, a family had to take 1 month as janitor. That went on in the mausoleum, and it went on after we were in Valentine Hall. And you had to go out on Saturday night and set up the chairs and stuff for Sunday school rooms and whatever, and a few other things. And then early Saturday morning, especially at the mausoleum, Andy kept it rather cool in there. You went over early, turned the heat up, went home, then you got ready and you went back to church, and then you dismantled things when you left. But we did that for several years, and you had to take your turn for a month, and I was so glad when we finally got a janitor. And we didn't get a janitor for a long time. And So finally, on Palm Sunday, it was in April 11, 76. On Palm Sunday, we had our first service in the new sanctuary after we built it. That was about the last thing we did. And we had green chairs and everything, I think. We were painting like the night before. My husband was painting up there, and I was up there by himself. And someone would say, "Oh, it looks lonely up there." And so they get up there, and then they get right down. So he ended up being up. And we girls, Cheryl and Jeannie and I, we painted down low. But we were painting up until the last minute. And so then we had the groundbreaking for Hanson Wing out here. And that was named after Virgil Hanson, who was a dear man here, and he died, and so we named it after him. And we remodeled the Valentine Hall once or so, and we just kept, going along like that. And Jim Hewlett came to us in '83, and after that, I don't have too much on who's been here and everything, but and my husband remained a real good member always. He surveyed everything for us, and he never had gone to church since he had to go to the Nazarene, and so. I was, we had a Mary Martha circle that was for the younger ones. We were the younger group then, and we had a night one, because we started it. And I was instrumental in getting the chrismons. You know what the chrismons are. And I had to, Meridian did it, and my friend Jackie Riddlemoser had gone here, and then Jack opened his law office over there, and so they moved over to Meridian. So I had Jackie come over and bring some. I asked them first if I was president or something, if they'd like to, be interested, and they said yes, Mary Martha. So she brought some over and showed us. And so, we wanted to do that. So I wrote to Danville, Virginia, to the Lutheran Church. I had to sign my life away because I found the letter the other day, the release letter. But we had to promise that we would make them for resale. We wouldn't change them in any ways. We wouldn't modify what they stood for, the symbolism. We'd do all, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, And so I signed it. And then I was able to purchase books, pattern books. I got 3 pattern books. And then we bought the equipment, and we worked feverishly making those things so we could do a tree. So every year we still have them, and thank goodness for the ladies. They take good care of them. They repack them, repair them a little. And on the first Saturday in December, we have a salad buffet or salad luncheon, but we've called it the brunch. We've called it different things. And afterward, anyone that wants to goes in and decorates those. Then we pack them back up later and put them away, and so we still have them. And they're all white styrofoam and gold trim. And they haven't changed much, and we've repaired them a little bit and everything. But thank goodness we still take good care of them, or the ladies do. I don't as much. But we did do that, and I was really proud of that. And another thing I did, I went to Bible fellowship school, Bible study for 5 years. And the book of John got me through a lot of stuff. And because my husband had health problems by then. And so I did that. And Dwight wanted to start a Bible study when he's here, but we had to go to homes, and so I said, well, if you'd have it at my house, that Mark came home for lunch. He was in school then, and he went to school, and he came home for lunch every day. If we had it at my house every Tuesday, okay, so he said, okay. So we had it there every Tuesday, and when Mark opened the front door, we stopped. Jackie, my dear friend Jackie Cooney, was usually making one more point. The old psychology major she was. Just one more point. She was still always talking when Mark came home. But we did that for years, and that was a good thing to do. And Dwight didn't mind coming to my house every Tuesday. And so we did that, and I found that release letter, though, was really funny. I found it the other day in my file for the Christmas, and it was dated 4/27/76. So that was when we did that. And it was, my husband had 2 heart surgeries in his life, and his first one, he'd had a heart attack at 39. But he was pretty good from it. And then Dr. Herr came to town, and Dr. Herr was the heart specialist out of Portland. And so our heart doctor said he thought maybe Lennon would be a candidate for heart surgery. So he went and yeah, I was. And so he and my neighbor, Rosemary Levi, were 2 of his very first patients when he came here. And so that's when I said Book of John got me through that, because, it's kind of scary. He was 42, going to be 43, and he was feeling pretty good. He didn't know how bad he'd felt before, and he was feeling good. Check yourself in when you're feeling fine to have heart surgery, which you know nothing about. Didn't know how long it was going to take him to get over it or anything, so it was kind of spooky. But we got through that. And our first really other big hurdle had been Mark. When Mark was born in 1954, we found out he had a mild case of cerebral palsy. And that was pretty hard. And we had 2 surgeries and lots of therapy at the old Elks. First it was an old house in Collister, and then they built the new one, which was nice after that. But he went to that for a long time. And so Lyndon had that heart surgery, and then he realized how bad he'd felt. And he felt pretty good for 5.5 years. And probably the worst day of my life was when the heart guy came out and said he's having lots of problems in there and he's not going to live very long. And he said, but we're not going to tell him, are we? Well, anyway, so we didn't tell. He said, we're going to see him now, but don't tell him, because he's too young to go home and sit in a rocking chair and wait to die. So I didn't tell him, and that was really hard. I was really anxious, and I was upset, and he kept saying, what's wrong? You're acting really nervous and whatever. So then that is the time that I gave it all to God. I just said, God, you have to take it. You have to do whatever. And that gave me peace then. That was the one thing I did do that really helped me the most. It was a big thing. And so it's hard to do sometimes because you like to be in charge and everything. But I gave it all to God, and that helped me a lot. And I never did tell him. And he knew, I'm sure, but nearest he'd ever say to him, anything happening to him, he'd say, well, if anything should happen to me, knowing full well it was going to, and I knew he was going to get worse before he wasn't going to get better. And he died in 1984, and they had said they couldn't do surgery again. But they did do surgery as a last-ditch effort. They had it in Portland, and I'd gone to work. I hadn't worked for the 28 years. I was on the Easter Seal Board, did all this free work. And so I knew that I didn't want to be panicked into getting a job for, whatever I had to do. And so I went back to work. I wanted to go back to work for the state. My friends weren't very helpful. They said, well, you're 50 years old. You probably don't have to worry. No one's going to hire you. And you're 50. Well, I got a good job. And I had worked there when he died. 18 months after he'd had that last heart surgery, he did die. He had another heart attack, and he died. And I had gone to work, and I had like 2 days of being there 2 years when he died. And then I was really busy, with my job and everything. I went to Kansas City for 12 years for a week every November. They gave me administrative leave, and I went and I worked in the newsroom for the National FFA. And they came out, they trucked stuff out every year from Alexandria, Virginia. And they had it in Kansas City, and there's just people, and I did that, and I came back to work, and when my mailbox got too full, they'd take it out and throw it on my desk, but nobody opened anything or called anybody or did anything, so it was always a nightmare, after being gone a week. And nobody did anything at your desk or your boss's desk either, and but I'd, gone back to work, and it was a real busy job, but it was a good chapter in my life. It really was. And before that, I only knew that the FFA boys wore blue corduroy jackets and for farmers usually. But Meridian still has a really good chapter. They have it and Cuna have some of the biggest ones. And then August 9th, in 94 was probably just one of the big challenges. I found out I had colon cancer, and I was going to be 65 pretty soon. It was in 64 or 94, and I was going to be on Medicare and everything, but Blue Cross had to pay for that one because they said, well, she's got to be on Medicare, so blah, 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 blah. I had to get permission. And the office girl, I'll never forget, she says, she needs it now. So they had to pay. But the surgeon came in then, and he says, there's a 75% chance, that I could cure you. Because, he'd taken out everything he could. But I was going to have chemo and radiation. Then the head guy who had been my internist before, he was heading up the new CNL's cancer thing. He came in, followed him in later. He said, well, Dorothy, there's a 70% chance it's already somewhere else. What a downer that was. So I thought, well, I'm just not going to pay any attention to either one of you. Because you can make statistics anytime you want to. Oh, and then I had an ostomy, and I had to get used to that. But I told myself that it was inconvenient maybe, but it was doable. So I'd tell myself that every now and then still. But, it's going to be 24 years, August 9th this year. So I guess, the statistics weren't all right. But I'm also really proud that we are a reconciling church. But I am surprised that there's not more on record as a reconciling church, Methodist church. Because I always thought we were anyway, their motto was open hearts, open minds, open doors. So I always felt like we were. And I still feel that way. But I'm real proud of the fact that we are that. And Hillview served me really well. I always believe that you should live accordingly, set your priorities, whatever. Try to set a good example, because you never know who's watching you. You might do something right, or you inspire somebody and not even know it. And I think that's really important. And so I'm still here, still kicking, not very high. And I certainly am not raising much dust. Amen.